Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Regina Lena, and welcome back to another episode of the Pageant Sit Down. For those who are in Canada, happy Family Day, happy belated Valentine's Day, and thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited because it's Family Day, and I thought, why not have one of my favorite pageant I shouldn't say favorite. She is one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorites. Favorite pageant sisters with me today. She is a multi-titled pageant queen. She is a wonderful mother. She has a fur baby, a human baby, and she is a science fanatic. She is your reigning Mrs. Canada Galaxy, Denise Garrido. Hi, Denise.
Hello. Happy
Hi.
Family Day and belated
Welcome.
Happy Valentine's.
You too. Welcome to Pageant Sit Down. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the soft snow that's been falling down today. We went on a walk and it's like a postcard, so I enjoy it.
That's amazing. It is very scenic outside.
Mhm.
I do want you, if you don't mind, to introduce yourself to all of our viewers who may not know you.
Yep. So I'm the current reigning Mrs. Galaxy Canada. So 2020, 2021. We got an extra bonus year because of the wildness of 2020 that came upon us. I'm a mother, like you mentioned. Theo will be turning 2 in like just over a month. So it's crazy how fast time flies. And yeah, I've been involved in pageantry for a long time. It kind of started off as a thing to distract me in the middle of my thesis in my 4th year university, and then
Oh,
it led to the snowball effect. You do one, you catch the bug, you're like, I want to do it again, I want to do it again, and then and here I am still. I won't even say how many years later, but lots of years later, and enjoying it.
that's amazing. The fact that you said you started it in college, here you are now. And I know I mentioned it earlier, you all are a multi-titled beauty queen. How many titles do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, titles that I like won in Canada, it's 3. Miss Earth Canada, Miss World Canada, and Mrs. Galaxy Canada. But I've like represented Canada at lots of different international pageants. So I've been appointed
Mhm.
titles, but in terms of titles I've won, it's 3.
That's amazing.
And then like a 24-hour one as well.
And I think that's where, so I did Miss Earth Canada back in 2012, so you were a very familiar face to me. And then, of course, the whole 24-hour Miss Universe Canada, I was like, oh, who is this? And when I met you in 2017 at Miss Universe, yeah, 2017 at Miss Universe Canada, to be honest, I was so starstruck. I don't know if you get told that often, but I was.
Oh, what? Yeah. I always find it weird if someone says that. Like, I mean, I haven't really been like maybe once or twice. And it was kind of more of like pageant stars. It's just like this person. That's how I felt when I first met Natalie Glebova. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
my gosh.
is that her? And Scott was with me, my husband now, Scott. And I was just like, Scott, I swear that looks like I think that's Natalie Glebova. And he was just like, why did you go and talk to her and say hi? And I'm like, no, she's gonna think I'm creepy. And so it like took a
Oh my
while for
gosh.
him to be like, just go. And it was very exciting. It was just like I felt like the stars had aligned and I was supposed to be there at that time to get to meet her. So I definitely
Mhm.
know like that the feeling of just meeting like someone who's accomplished something that you really would like to strive for. And yeah, that was my starstruck moment when it came to pageantry.
That's amazing. No, okay, so I do need to, sorry, correct myself. I'm getting called out by Cindy. I meant to say Mrs. Galaxy Canada. I now know she's watching and she's calling me out. Sorry, Cindy. Just to clarify.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
My phone is buzzing. She's like, you said cat. Sorry. Anyways, no, but seriously, Denise, when I first walked into our GTA training sessions, when you walked in, I was like, oh my gosh. And it's so crazy that, right? And it's so crazy that fast forward a couple years later, here we are together as rating queens for Galaxy Canada. And
Mhm.
I think you were saying it earlier, like we're in sync today, but I felt
Yeah.
like our pageant journey was aligned at the 2020 pageant as well.
I 100% agree. I feel like people come into your lives and it can be at different stages, and then you feel like, okay, I've met them, and then it's over and that's it. But you never know, like, what that is supposed to be the beginning of. And, fast forward a few years later. And I mean, like, through social media, we were still technically connected, but
Hmm.
things I think really solidified when we did the Pageant Canada Galaxy together.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. So speaking of Galaxy Canada, the Galaxy International pageant is coming up, but so are the national pageants, and I know there's so many Mrs. Candidates this upcoming year. Have they been reaching out to you, kind of asking for advice, or just following you in general?
Yeah, I've actually had several like Mrs. contestants and even like fellow Mrs. contestants that competed with me that are coming back as well. And but it's actually quite amazing because one thing that I've really found with just the Galaxy system is this team family connection. And so a lot of the current queens have reached out by queens like I'm talking about local queens.
Hmm.
Mrs. Galaxy Windsor and Etobicoke and Edmonton, and they've reached out because they have their own events going on, and they just want to just reach out with their fellow Galaxy queens or with
Yep.
the current reigning queen and just like all participate together in their fundraisers and like just the things that they come up with the creativity, especially in the midst of a pandemic where you
Yep.
have so much limited mobility and being able to do different things.
Hmm.
They're just, I'm really impressed with them. They're just pretty fabulous. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really great year of um, like competition, but I think just like a camaraderie of like all of these women that have come together and raising awareness for important causes, but just like
Hmm.
just seeing their own transformations from like when they first registered for Canada Galaxy to like I've been following them and their transformations and how they're coming out of their shells and just doing pretty amazing things. Yeah, I'm very excited. I have no idea like how the finals are going to look like because we have
Hmm.
pretty fabulous women competing.
I agree with you. Like I remember doing an interview, I think last weekend with one of the Ms. Because she has a podcast, and it was so crazy to hear her afterwards even talk about their group. And I even told her I'm so glad that I'm not competing in this year's pageant because the competition in all divisions is going to be insane, and whoever wins is definitely going to be deserving of their title.
Hmm. I mean, and all of them are deserving. I don't know if you've ever heard, the phrase that, different night, different judges, different results. And so
Hmm.
a huge part of it, I feel, and this was a quote that Paula Sugar said that, she really feels that it's each individual's destiny. And it's not
Hmm.
that people worked less or harder. Like everyone's worked hard. Like who am I to say you didn't work as hard as I did, right? Everyone's worked
Hmm.
hard. And I feel like there is a little piece of like that destiny element. Like whose destiny is it this year? But you're still gonna work hard. You still have to put the effort in. Don't just be like, oh, it's my destiny. I don't have to like you still have to put in the effort. Success is the result of taking a risk, putting in the effort, and then the timing being right. You need to
Hmm.
have all of those in the equation. I mean, it could be the right timing, but if you haven't put in the effort and you haven't done the work to put yourself in the best position for success, then I mean, like you've messed up with the recipe. So
Hmm.
you need to have everything present. You've got to put in the effort still. But yeah,
Hmm.
whoever wins, like it'll be a huge kudos and kudos still to all her fellow queens because everyone's putting in a lot of work. It's really
Yes.
impressive.
It's so crazy and
Yeah.
it's amazing to see. And I'm so excited because a lot of them have reached out to be a guest. So, for those who are listening and watching, you will be meeting many of them very soon. So, I'm looking forward to it. But, Denise, speaking of Galaxy and the Queens and our relationship, how has your reign been so far? You mentioned it off the top. We had an extension. How has it been for you?
So at the beginning, it was just like, okay, time to focus on internationals, like tunnel vision, let's go,
Yep.
let's focus, let's prepare. And then like pandemic kicks in and everything shuts down and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like there's like this crazy virus going around. No one had any information about it. We didn't know what to expect and how long it would be. And so just it's definitely been a roller coaster of personal emotions related to just what's going on in the world. And so but I find that having things to work towards helps just to get through. I feel like always having a sense of purpose is what kind of keeps you moving forward in a positive light. So having the Galaxy title and finding ways then to be creative with it, now with, restrictions that we're facing. So what else can we do? And so it's just using the virtual world a lot. And some people are actually still going out and going out to different organizations. That's been a little bit more tricky for myself, but I work with my strengths, and that's the thing. We all work with our own strengths as well. And so for me, I've taken more of a turn on the virtual end, and what can I do to help people either virtually or just educate people virtually, and especially with this recent monthly. Not a podcast, but it's like a series of like children's science classes, and so I feel like that's pretty exciting as well. And just working with their individual strengths. So this year has definitely been a year of like, all right, let's go, but then roller coaster of emotions. So step back, take care of yourself, put the mask on yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. So just really focusing on that self-care part of it, but then still having something to work towards and striving towards, which helps keeping myself like moving forward and chugging along. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you've definitely done a lot virtually. Like I see new posts from you almost every week of a new virtual session that you've done, whether it be like you said, teaching children science or book readings and stuff like that. So I think what you're doing is amazing. You were a speaker. I know you were a speaker at a school, and to see what you've done so far with your reign is amazing. And I can't wait for the world to open up again so that you can continue to grace the world with your appearances and your charity work. So I'm excited.
Like for me, the biggest part about the world opening up is just that human connection of being physically close to other people, because that's definitely a thing that as humans we long for. We long for that connection. And I mean, online, you get a bit of that, but like different hormones are released by just hugging someone, that physical touch, right? A baby, an infant baby. If you were to provide a baby all of their necessities, food, shelter, water, but you don't provide them any physical touch, they will be, their brain development will be significantly hindered. Their brain development will actually be very minimal, and sometimes they might even die. So it is built into our systems to have human contact and connection. And so I think that's one of the things that most people are missing is the physical contact, because it's hardwired into our genetics, is this need for human interaction. And so that's the thing that I'm really missing out on, and I really am looking forward to having once again. And I think that's definitely what most people are also feeling as well.
Oh, definitely. I miss hugging people and just not being scared of the people around me. So I definitely get what you mean. But you did mention a baby. And you were also talking about your son Theo earlier. How has it been? Because when you competed before, you were Miss. You were Miss this, Miss that. You were Miss Denise. And now you are Mrs. You are a mom, an amazing wife. How has it been going from Miss to Mrs. division with a newborn? Because Theo was a couple of months when you competed. So how was it?
Yeah, he was 6 months.
How was that?
Yeah, and so that's actually a really good point, because the mentality, your state of mind, your frame of mind is very different. At least for me, it was just competing as a miss, because it was all about me. I didn't have anything else to really like distract myself with. I mean, like you have a fur baby, but it's not the same kind of daily time requirements and like energy exertion obligations as having like a little human child. And so I feel once I had a baby of my own, things have shifted so much, because priorities definitely shift. And like I feel like family is just part of that deep, deep core. And then everything else comes after that. As long as that core is taken care of, as long as his well-being is taken care of, then I'm able to give beyond that. And so there's definitely been that shift from like, just I do what I want, I go off, I travel, I leave for a month, I leave for 2 months, it's fine, I figure it out when I get home, to now like just leaving for a day. I had a photo shoot in New York, and I was just like, I can't be longer for a day. Like I just like the idea of being that long away from him. And everyone's different. Some people are fine with taking off for longer periods. For myself, it's just this, I'm like, no, my little one, I can't leave him, he's gonna wonder where mommy is. And so there's definitely been a shift since having a child, and it's really precious because it's definitely given my life so much more meaning and purpose. Because before, the purpose was just
there he is.
development and doing my own thing, and now the purpose is just the well-being of this little human and doing the best that I can, because we all do our best based on the information we have, and just doing the best that I can to give him a happy and healthy life.
That's
so
amazing.
Definite big shifts from Miss to Mrs. Big time.
So you said that Theo was 6 months. You looked amazing, first of all, after having Theo and walking on stage in a pageant. But what can you say to the new moms out there who are thinking about competing or were curious about competing as a married woman or as a brand new mom?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like the biggest thing is that, go for it. And it's honestly going to be an example for your child that, regardless of circumstances and things that you have going on in your life, just if there's something that you want to strive for, go for it. The worst thing that could happen is, you don't win, and you still gain skills. You still gain so many other positives from it. You meet people along the way. That's like first and foremost. I think it's going to be an example to your child later on by you still going for it and just kind of like living and striving towards a dream. And also just really emphasizing the importance of that community, of that support. If you like reaching out to friends and family for the support, because when I competed, I really called it the family affair. Like I had, like my husband was with me. He had the baby strapped onto him, and like we were doing everything together. And I really needed that community of support. I can never say like, oh, I did it all on my own, because it wasn't the case. Like it was this community that backed me up. My mother-in-law would help watch the baby in between. Like everyone was like hands on deck. And the old phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. It is so true. If you want to be able to take care of the mom and have the mom go through her healing postpartum, and then to continue on with her own goals, you still need to have like hands on deck to support that baby, because they have so many needs, especially in that first year of life. That's why they're called dependents. They are 100% dependent on their caregivers. So having that support, and not being afraid to reach out and reach out to as many people. There are people that do want to help, and so they just don't know if you need help. So just reach out and ask for help, and then just go for it. Because like I said, the worst thing that could happen is you don't win, but you've met people along the way. You've had a completely new experience, and you've developed yourself as a whole. So yeah, just the world's your oyster. You never know what opportunity you're missing out on unless if you just give it a shot. Because I entered into my first pageant and I had no idea what was going to happen. But if I had dropped out, all the different life experiences I've had because of different titles would have never happened if I just said, oh, it'll never happen to me, right? That mentality, it'll never happen. But the thing is it could happen, right? So you just have to go for it.
That's true. That's some great advice. And one question I did want to ask, is you just mentioned it about competing in your first pageant. What got you into pageants in the first place?
Yeah. So It actually started off as so I grew up, my dad is Brazilian, and in Brazil, Latin America, pageantry is a big deal. So I
Yep.
grew up watching like Miss Universe and Miss World, and there was this one time that we were watching. I think it was Miss Universe, and it was the year that Oksana Fedorova from Russia won, and like I was just like, she's so beautiful. And I remember after watching it, my dad one day just like said, "Oh, maybe that will be you one day," and I'm like, and that was
Wow.
like the first time that that kind of possibility could exist, and I was just like, I
Ooh.
could like that could happen to like a regular person. And so that little seed was planted. And so fast forward, so I actually did a teen pageant in grade 12, and I went off. I did this teen pageant, and not many people know about it because I mean, I didn't. I went off to university, and my focus was my school at that point.
Hmm.
And so I did it, and it was just like, oh my gosh! Like the first time I got a like my sash, I was like screaming on the top of my lungs, like, I got a sash! It's real! It's real! Oh my gosh! Like the people on TV, and now I'm doing it. Oh, right! And it was just like this hyperness and so excited, and like like just on the top of the world kind of feeling. And then after to go off to university, and my focus is just my schedule was crazy, like no sleep. And so what I started doing to kind of get myself, entertained on the side with like other interests of mine was pageantry again. And so yeah, I was in my last year of university. I was in the middle of doing my thesis, and between just like sleep deprivation and just so much stuff that was due and that I had to get done. So in between, I'd go online and I'd check out. At the time, there were forums, not social media, it was
Ooh.
forums. There were like these web pages where people would just write comments and post pictures. And so I started going on, it was like a Canadian pageant forum, and I started reading about like all these pageants going on in Canada. And then I found out that there was a pageant locally in Northern Ontario because I went to school in Sudbury, and that there was a local pageant that was the preliminaries to one of the nationals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wouldn't that be exciting? And so I just applied, and I didn't know what would come of it. And I get the follow up. Oh, we'd love to have you compete. And one thing led to another. I did that competition, went to the nationals, and everything's just snowballed after that. And that comes back to the whole, you never know what's going to happen unless you just try it.
Hmm.
Right. And it's been like a long journey of just one experience after another. I did one pageant, had that experience, it led to another one. Or I did an international pageant, and because I did that one, another international pageant reached out to me and said, would you like to we'll appoint you as Miss Canada if you want to do this one. And I'm like, okay. And so like I've traveled all over the world. I've had so many amazing experiences because of pageantry. I really feel that it's made me such a well-rounded person and a
Hmm.
worldly person, because not only do I go to a different country and experience the culture, but you meet contestants from all around the world. So you get to meet people and talk about their homes and what they do and what their values are. And I just feel I learned so much about the world because of pageantry. And so yeah, I feel like the world's your oyster. You just send in the application. What's the worst thing that could happen? They say you're not qualified to compete. Fine, on to the next one.
Hmm.
But the best thing that could happen is just the cascade of all these possibilities afterwards.
Hmm. That's You've definitely had a very colorful experience when it comes to pageants. But what would you say is your most memorable experience?
My
Because you've
most
done so many.
I know. And they're all memorable like for different reasons. It could be either based on like, some of the places that I've been able to explore that I thought were
Hmm.
just amazing, or just different individuals that I met that have had profound impacts on my life from them.
Hmm.
Um, Let me think. Probably like one of my most memorable. I mean, there's always something to be said about like the first, right? You like your
Yep.
first pageant or your first whatever. So I'm gonna talk about my first international pageant,
Ooh,
and which was Miss Earth, so in the Philippines. And
nice.
I feel like just so many parts of it are still so vivid in my mind because it was just everything's new, and so it's all of this excitement, and so all these memories they implant themselves in your mind. So anyhow, there was one night. This was towards the end of the pageant. It was like just before finals, and this is just like a funny story. Like I said, like just random of memories that will implant themselves, but it's just like, it's kind of funny. So there were a bunch of us in a room, and we were at like these like villa resorts, and I guess there was an issue with the plumbing at this one resort, and there was like, I guess, like backflow of the toilet that happened at like after midnight. So we're all sleeping, and I think it's like the night before finals, so like we really wanted to get our sleep in, and all of a sudden I start hearing screaming, and I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, it's like a horror movie. I'm like, oh my gosh, people are screaming, what's going on? And so like I hear someone say like, water, it's leaking, it's flooding, and we're all like, oh my gosh, like we're grabbing our stuff, making sure like nothing like gets destroyed or wet.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, eventually someone was like, oh, it looks like the water is backflowing across like a bunch of the different little villas. And so we're like, oh shoot, well, like, did anything in our room get wet? No, it looks like we're okay. And anyhow, during this time, Miss Grease was still sleeping. And so we're trying to wake her up. We're like, Miss Grease, wake up, things are backflowing, just grab your stuff just in case. And so she was like half awake, half asleep still. And so as she started processing that, like there was like water or backflow, and it really smells in here, really, all of a sudden she like wakes up. And she just starts like looking under her sheets, and she,
to make sure it wasn't her.
she thought that she had like pooped herself or something. Like she was looking under the sheets, like lifting,
Oh my
and
gosh.
like I'm like, where are you going? And she's just like crawling underneath her sheets. And so after a while, we're like, are you okay? And she's just like, and like we're like, the toilets are backflowing. What are you doing under your sheets? Like looking
Oh my
around.
gosh.
And she's just like, oh, it's the toilets. I thought it was me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Anyhow,
Oh my
it was
gosh.
just like one of those like silly memories that have implanted themselves. And I know we laughed. I think it was because we were tired, so it was extra funny at the time. It was just one of those memories that were like, I'll never forget it. It was like Carla Henry, who ended up winning Miss Earth. We were in the same room with Miss Grease. And then I think was it Miss Romania as well? But you remember certain characters in the story, and it was just, again, it's just one of those memories. It was the first pageant, so many things like really stick out in terms of memory. But that was just like a really funny moment that we had. That it was just like this real, everyone's always so proper and like nails are done and hair is wonderful, but then these are like these live, like real moments where you see someone in like their most vulnerable, just normal state. It's just like, did I poop myself? Like, where did that come from? No, you didn't. It's doing just backflowing, but you're good. Yeah. So no, I've had lots of really wonderful memories and lots of great friendships because of pageants. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So you've traveled a whole lot. Like you mentioned, you traveled to the Philippines. Where else have you traveled based on your pageant experience?
Yeah. So I went to, the Philippines was the first one. And then I went to Dominican Republic for another pageant, like shortly after. I feel like it was like twice a year. There was always like,
wow,
like it was like a period of, I was just constantly on the go. And so it was Philippines and then Dominican Republic. And then I went back to the Philippines to be a chaperone for Miss Earth, and I was the translator for Miss Brazil. And so, and she won Miss Earth that year. So I was just like, I did a good job. Because I was so scared, everything's on you. It's like, if you mess up this translation, you're going to mess it up for the girl. And I'm like, no, it was a lot of pressure, but it worked out in the end. And then I went to China for Miss World. I was in Germany for Top Model of the World. I went to South Korea for World Miss University. I went to Cambodia and China 2 separate times because I was called back to be a host for the finals for that World University pageant. So just that's another thing, actually, just thinking about those 2 pageants that I was called back to be a host for, is that you never know who you're going to meet. And just because you don't win does not mean that you're a loser or you lack anything. It's just time, place, different set of judges, different night, different results, right? It's not that something's wrong with you as a person. It's just, it wasn't your destiny. And so, and that's why just being respectful and kind to other people, you're never going to lose. And because I had such a positive relationship, even after the end of the pageant, and the organization still really liked me. And all of a sudden, like a year later, I get this random email saying, we're reaching out to you and we're looking for a host for the finals, like a female host. And so were you interested? And I'm like, what? And so
Wow.
it's just this, I was so excited. It was like this huge deal and very honoring because there, I left a positive impression, even though I didn't even win. I still had left a positive impression and they wanted me to come back.
That's amazing. Because you also, like you mentioned, you do now host a lot of different events. How has that been? Because, you're used to being on stage as a candidate, then you started chaperoning, and then you started hosting. How was it being in different parts of the pageant
Yeah, in
industry?
different roles. Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? There's like lots of pros to all of them. Like being one of the contestants, like you're in the limelight, like you're like dead center on that stage, all the attention's on you, and it's exciting. But then on the other side, it's exhausting because you have to be on 24/7. You have to look the part, you have to be the part, and like your schedule, you have to be up extra early to make sure you're done up. And so it's exhausting. Whereas, like, as a chaperone, I got to still kind of see what's going on in the background, but I don't have to really like try that extra much, right? So I can sleep a little more, or maybe it's not as much because you have to be up early to account for all the contestants. So I mean, like, it's a different type of experience. But then when all the contestants are on the stage and you're watching from the back, you're like, I want to go on there again, right? There's something about being on the stage. And then with hosting, it kind of gives you that luxury of like, you get to be on the stage and you get like, these little moments that you get, the focus goes on you and then it goes back to, all the contestants. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. It's a really cool evolution because never in a million years would I have ever thought that I would be asked to be a host, especially for a pageant, which as a kid, I was just like, isn't that the coolest thing? And then all of a sudden I did it. You never know where things in life are going to lead if you don't just give them a shot. You just try one thing, see what happens, see what people you meet, see what skills you gain along the way, and what relationships you develop, because a lot of there's a quote that goes 95% of success in life is based on your relationships, and that's business. So successful businesses, it's anything. So relationships are so important. And competition, some people are so focused on the competition. I'm not here to make friends, I'm only here for the competition. But then you miss out on so much more, because at the end of the day, only one person wins. What else are you going to get out of it? And I feel you could get so much more out of it if you go in with just a humble spirit, because you go in focusing to be your best, putting your best foot forward, having that vision that, can I do this? Let me strive for the top, but don't do it at like the detriment of someone else, right? Because once the curtains close, the show is over, what else do you have to show for that experience? What else are you going to be able to take away? Like, are you going to have a friend? Like, just doing things in a kind light, so that way everyone wins at the end.
No, that's amazing advice. And I love how talking to you're so full of wisdom, and you were saying that you were surprised to have been asked to host, but I've seen you public speak and I've seen you talk to everyone, and I feel like you have that presence with you. Like, you walk on stage, people see your aura or feel your aura, they see you, they look at you, all eyes are on you. But then when you speak, it's just the words that you say are so meaningful and so strong. Have you ever considered being like a TED Talk speaker or writing a book? Because I feel like you have so much wisdom to share with the world.
I mean, I've like done talks, and I've written a little. So there's like a book by a Canadian publisher that's called Making It in Heels, and they actually asked like different women in different backgrounds just to write like a profound story of going through adversity. And so I've had like little snippets here and there. I mean, it's never been like my ultimate focus and goal. And I think that's ultimately also what it is just like, what is something that you really want to put your energy into and strive towards. And then I think those extras would come into place. I think if my main focus would be to be like a speaker that goes and travels around and speaks at schools, then maybe I'd be putting more effort into that. I mean, I still feel that everybody has a story. Like, my story is different from your story. It's different from, our fellow queens' stories, and they're all unique and special, and it's all inspirational for different people. And so, like, anyone can go around and tell their stories and inspire people. And so, and when I go to the schools and I go visit some of my old elementary schools, when I went to that elementary school last year, like, even with the students, just hearing little snippets of my own story, because it's something that makes me real and they could relate to, and hopefully can inspire them as well. And so, like, sharing our stories, I think we all have like that great gift of just of sharing, but it's also just having like the passion behind, like, I want to go around and I want to go across the world. Like Terry Fox, he had this dream and this passion. I'm going to run across Canada. I'm going to raise money for cancer. And that was his focus. I haven't like put like that kind of focus into it. It's just kind of happened. But I mean, I never say never for anything, because you never know what's going to happen later on in life, right? I never thought that I would travel to, some of the places I've traveled, but it's happened and I'm so grateful for it. I'm definitely open to things, but I haven't like made it like my sole focus. But yeah, I'm definitely open. There's like amazing things that could happen in life if you just are open to receiving them. And sometimes you don't even know what it is. You don't know what could potentially come from like this conversation 10 years down the road, where all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, Regine for whatever. And then I'll like be like, hey Regine, so we need somebody to come over to India right now. And like, you never know what kind of things could lead, like the cascade that could happen from one decision and one experience. It's
very true.
Cool. I find like life is really cool that way, that one decision and one choice could lead to a cascade of many things later on that you have no idea. And then you look back and it's just like, man, if I hadn't done that thing, all of this other stuff would have never happened.
Yep.
Every decision is so profound.
And you were a guest on the Sit Down with Scott Dan Brown, and you were talking a little bit about how you got into another passion of yours, which is Taekwondo. And that, as you were telling the story to us then, was just an idea because your brother was asked to do it too. And you're like, I want to do it. I want to do it. So how has Taekwondo and your training in Taekwondo formed or kind of meshed in with your pageant life, if it has?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that skills that I gained from Taekwondo have been something that I've been able to transfer into pageantry, because it's like a very disciplined sport. And so when my parents originally wanted my brother to do an extracurricular, I was just like, oh, what? Martial arts? And I'm thinking Jean-Claude Van Damme. I'm like, I want to do that too, right? Like, those cool flips. And then I realized, like, now looking back, I'm like, those people that do those kind of flips are people that train in acrobatics and have
parkour,
like, the body mass to be able to do those kind of flips. But that my brain was just like, oh, it's an automatic thing. But for me, just that there's like a shift that happens the moment I enter the training space. It's called the dojang in Korean. And something happens the moment I cross that barrier into the training space. And I just feel like I feel empowered. I feel like I'm an example for these other students that are in there with me, because I'm one of like the only, I'm actually the highest ranking female black belt in that club. And so I feel like, as a female showing these younger girls that are competing, that are not competing, but training, but even for the little boys, as an example for the younger boys, I feel like even for Theo, my son, I'm an example for him that a woman could be strong. She could put her against a male, mind over matter. You have like the ability to do amazing things. And I feel like being in a sport that tends to be very male dominated is very empowering in itself. And so I always saw it as, even when we were sparring or whatever it was we were doing in class, I always wanted to to be one of the top in the class just to prove a point, because everyone's like, oh, the guys are always the ones who are going to do more push-ups, or the guys are going to be the best ones in sparring. And I'm like, really? And so that just kind of drove me even more to work on honing in my skill, whether it be like physical exertion, like getting more push-ups in, or more rope climbs. So we have a rope, and part of our black belt testing is you got to be able to climb this rope a few times in a row. It's just like a measure of like your endurance, your perseverance. And so for me, I had like this determination to like make a record of the most number of rope climbs. And so I have the current record at our club for the most number of rope climbs. Like I went like pure monkey mode. I'm like holding on with my feet, and some pretty crazy things that skills you acquire. But with the discipline that comes in Taekwondo, that was definitely something that I applied with pageantry, because pageantry requires discipline, right? You want to participate in something, you want to compete in something, you have to work on improving yourself. And I know in Taekwondo class we would do push-ups, and halfway through, like say a set of 50, he would pause and he'd ask everyone, so who's tired? And if any student raised their hands, he's like, well, then we're gonna keep going. And so we keep going for another set of 50, and we're like, our arms are shaking. And then he'd ask again, so who's tired? And then we think we got him this time, and we're like, no, we're not tired. He's like, good, so let's do another 20, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so we go and do more. But what that teaches you, first of all, is that mind over matter. Even when you thought you were done, when we were like, my arms are shaking, I can't go anymore, you actually could go more. And I guess that's even with pageantry, the importance of having a mentor or a coach, because having someone who could push you that extra bit. Like on our own, we are capable of doing pretty amazing things, but if you have a third set of eyes, someone who can give you that extra push, you will push yourself even more than what you were more than you thought you were capable of. And then just the focus on self. So Taekwondo is a very individual type of sport. Like it's me against the opponent, right? And even when we do kata could be more of a team thing where we're doing these patterns and we all do it in unison. But a lot of the stuff that we do is very individual, and so you're focusing on yourself. You're not focusing on the other person. It's how much can I work on improving my own strength in order to become my best version of myself. And that's what pageantry is too. What can I do to improve myself to be the best version of me, so I can put my best foot forward when I'm competing as well. And so there's just been so many positive things that I've been able to kind of transfer out of martial arts into pageantry. And you would think like that makes no sense. Like one is just like,
they're so different,
animal, right? And then the other one is just so elegant and soft. And that was one thing I had to work on, though, by the way, is when I did my first pageant, I was pretty very, my walk, I called it the dinosaur walk. It was very rough, and I looked like a guy walking. It was just very
stiff,
not very smooth and elegant. And you learn, right? And you don't let that bring you down. Just see it as an opportunity for growth, because online is it's a world where people have no face. You could have anonymous profiles, and people could be extremely mean, and they could write really mean things about others. And one of the things I often tell contestants is, if you're in the midst of competing, don't even watch or follow those online platforms, because they can really bring you down. And then they'll just talk about their favorites, and then if you're not on the list of favorites, then you're just like, what's the point? I'm not a favorite. I guess I'm not good enough. But the thing is that these online people are not the judges. So if you put your focus on these random anonymous people, you're giving away your power. And so just focusing on yourself, doing what you can to improve yourself, which will put yourself in the best foot forward when you're competing. And there was a part 2 to that, but I know I forgot. So
it's okay. No, but those are great, because I know for a fact that the Filipino culture, if you look on all those pageant forums, the first people to attack are Filipino people, and I apologize for all of them. But it is true. You don't want to read or see it, because it does personally affect you. Like I've seen it firsthand with some of the girls when I competed in the Philippines. So
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense and is great advice. And that leads me to our segment, which is 5 tips from a beauty queen. So Denise, for all of those pageant hopefuls out there who may have just started, or maybe a pageant mommy, one that has recently had a child and is now stepping into pageants, what are some advice that you could give to them?
So one would be kind of like what I mentioned about like focus on yourself. It's okay to see who are your fellow contestants, but then don't put all your energy on that, because like I mentioned, your energy should be focused on yourself, and don't be giving it away to someone else. It's fine to appreciate. It's amazing if you could learn and have the confidence to appreciate and to appreciate the beauty of your fellow contestants and like their strengths. Like that's amazing. But when you get so sucked in that you're just like, oh, she's just so much better in every possible way, you've given away all your own personal power because your focus has
Mhm.
gone into someone else. So just, honing it back into you and focusing on what can I do to be my best self. Second of all, when you're looking into competing, you want to, if there's a specific goal you have in mind, if there's a specific title you want, then um, success leaves clues. So look at what the people that have done it are doing, and then follow that kind of formula. So if I want to be like if I want to be Mrs. Galaxy, well, it would probably make sense for me to follow the current Mrs. Galaxy, Crystal KV, and then look at former Mrs. Galaxies before her and see what is it about these individuals that makes them stand apart, that makes them the perfect fit for the Galaxy brand. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what pageant it is. You could look at Miss Universe. Okay, if I want to be Miss Universe, what is it that each Miss Universe has had in the past? Or what is that formula? What is that something about them that makes them stand out, that makes them win that title? And so looking for the role model of what you want to attain. And so success leaves clues. So look at who's done it and just kind of follow that trail of, okay, so this is what they're looking for, like and these are the traits that they tend to go for. And so these will give me clues on things that I could work on myself to kind of work towards that title as well. Number three, if you're able to, reach out. Well, first of all, you can reach out to any former queen. Reach out to former queens and people that have done competitions and ask them what it's about. What was the experience like? Especially if it's your first pageant, ask them what is involved with it and what kind of commitments am I going to have to put into this? Is this like a 1 week pageant? Is it a 2 day pageant? Is it a 1 month pageant? You got to know that in advance, so that way you don't sign up for something and then once you're in it, you're just like, oh, I can't do this. So just kind of reaching out to individuals that have competed, and just getting feedback from them as well. And then the next part would be then going up a notch. You're working on yourself. You're following people that have done what you're trying to attain. Um, find a coach if you can, and if not, then there's free stuff even online. There's like channels, and there's like interviews with former queens and former title holders that you could get information on like tips and tricks and things with catwalk. If you're a good student, you will do well if you observe and if you pay attention and you are resourceful. Look online for videos. You can do very well because you are paying attention to the details that make the difference. And if you could get a coach, then that's even better, because it doesn't matter how amazing you are. Even the best Olympians will still have a coach. They're not like, I won the gold medal, I don't need you anymore. No, you have a coach to push you that extra bit, to see the little things that you might be missing, to push you that extra bit. Because there's some things that I may not notice. I curl my hands when I'm doing a turn and it looks weird, and I never noticed it until someone told me, right? So having someone with a separate set of eyes to give you that feedback will also be very helpful. And I think that's 5. Oh, I lost you. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I turned my mic off. Those are all great tips, Denise. So, for all of those girls and guys who are interested, make sure you listen to those tips because, as you mentioned, watch videos and learn. So, there you go. But, Denise, if people wanted to follow you and learn more about who Denise Garrido is, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah. So you could follow my Galaxy pages. So Mrs. Galaxy Canada is Instagram, and then Facebook is the Mrs. Galaxy Canada. And then my personal pages on Instagram is just Denise Garrido Official, and Facebook, it's Denise Garrido Canada.
Amazing. And you guys should definitely check her out because she does amazing work. She's so inspiring, and there's still more to her reign. So check her out. And like she said, for all of you who are interested in competing in Galaxy Canada, and if you are in the Mrs. division, you should see who the reigning and previous Mrs. are. So there you go. Check her out on social media. But Denise, we're not done yet. Well, almost done because we're getting to the hour mark. But is there anything like, so you are in the Mrs. division now. Do you still see yourself competing in another Mrs. pageant? Because there are a lot. Do you see yourself moving forward in pageantry, or do you see yourself more as chaperone, hosting? I know you coach. Where do you see yourself in the future?
So for me, it's kind of like an open book because, I thought I was done with pageants. Once I got married, I was just like, oh, there's nothing else after this. And then all of a sudden, like, there are Mrs. pageants, which I didn't even know existed. And so this has kind of opened up like a whole other world for me. But I mean, right now with my family, like, I don't know if like maybe I'd want to afterwards have a break, expand my family a little more, or I just feel like the world's your oyster. You don't know. I don't say, nope, I will be done after this, because you never know. I thought I was done before, and then I learned that there's another system that exists, and a system for married women that have had children, like open to anyone of any kind of background, which is absolutely amazing and empowering for women as a whole. Yeah, in terms of after this, who knows? I actually don't know. Right now, our focus is we're all working together towards the Galaxy Internationals, and also looking forward to the National Canada one, and just following the journey of all these individual contestants and the amazing work that they're doing. I think it's actually extremely empowering, especially for young girls, because I know for myself, just different things for reaching out in the community. Being part of a pageant like this, it gives you that platform to do these kind of things, but also it's kind of part of like the expectation. If you're going to have a title, you have to do something with it. And so it really teaches individuals to be creative, think outside of the box, and find ways to make an impact and to do something. And at the end of the day, once it's all over, you're going to be able to look back at that whole journey to the crown, and think of all of the amazing things and people you've touched, and organizations you've learned about along the way. You never know who you're going to meet by volunteering at an event. You never know what skills you're going to gain because you've volunteered at an event. Like, so many positives could come out of just taking an opportunity and just being like, I'm going to help out with this event one day. And then you meet someone who ends up being your future. Actually, I know someone who met their future employer at an event. So like, they didn't have a job, and they were like, okay, well, I may as well just, I'm going to just go to this event. They didn't feel like it, but they went anyways. And that's the thing. Sometimes you don't feel like it, but do it anyways, because you.
Isn't that how you met your husband?
Actually, no. So I met Scott, well, different kind of scenario, but kind of similar scenario, at a restaurant that he was doing magic at. So I had just got back from Germany from a pageant, and my ex had broken up with me 4 months prior, and I was still devastated and like heartbroken at the time. Yeah. And so I was just like, going to Germany is going to be good for me. I'll get my mind off of it, And so then I came back, and my friend who, she was going to look at, I think it was PhD or master's programs in Toronto, and she lives all like in Hamilton. I live pretty north of the city, and so because she happened to be in Toronto looking at some of the universities, we're like, oh, okay, we may as well meet up halfway. And we'll go to a restaurant because it's been a while. And so I had first gone back and I was just so tired. I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like going out, but I'm like, but I should. I got to be a good friend. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to just go anyways, right? So then I go, and the first restaurant we go to, the original restaurant based on Google Maps, was actually shut down. So we're like, okay, I guess that's out of the picture. So then we drive around to like the next place that we want to go to. And we actually go into the restaurant. We sit down, we look at the menu, but we weren't feeling the menu. And so I was just like, yeah, I don't really know what I want to get. And so my friend, she's just like, oh, well, if nothing interests you, let's just leave. And I'm like, no, we've already sat down. They've already given us the menu. They're getting our drinks. And they're like, who cares? We're leaving. And I'm like, so we walk out and I'm like embarrassed and we're walking back out of the restaurant. And then like we go to the next place, and that place looked kind of creepy because like weeds were overgrown. You couldn't even find the entrance. And I'm like, this looks like a haunted place. So we didn't go to that one. I swear, we went to like 6 places. And at the 6th location, it was like a Montana's. And I'm like, okay, this is like a tried and true location. You can't go wrong. We go in. It happened to be family night. On Tuesday nights, it's a family night. Scott does magic for children, right? He's a children's entertainer. And so on Tuesday, the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month, between 6 and 9, so just pay attention. These windows are very specific. The 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, between 6 and 9, he does magic to the patrons at the restaurant. And that happened to be after 6 restaurants where we ended up. And so he'd come over to our table, and I'm like, oh my God, look at the tricks he's doing. How cute, right? And then towards the end of the night, he was like done his shift, and we were still there at the table. And I noticed that he was about to leave, and I'm like, no, come join us. We're playing Connect Four, because they had like games nights too. So
oh wow,
I was just like, come sit at the table and join us, right? And so he came down, he sat down, and then we all started talking. And then there were so many things that I found that we had in common, different books that we read or different beliefs, or he was into running and I'm like, I'm into like half marathons too, or like he did Kung Fu and I did Taekwondo, or he had done 7 years in ballet and I'm like, you're a guy who dances? Oh my God, right? And so there was just so many things that just really synced up. And that's the thing. It was an opportunity that I could have been like, you know what, I'm not feeling it tonight. And then this was my future husband.
Or you could have stayed at the creepy restaurant.
Exactly. And it would have been a completely different ending to like my whole life story right now.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, I know. Every decision we make, we never know where it's going to lead.
That's true. But I was going to say, if you want to, Denise, to plug in Scott's business, I mean, feel free to.
Yeah. So Scott does, he specializes in children's entertainment, specifically magic. And so his tags on Facebook, it's a Magic of Scott Dietrich. And then on Instagram, it's, I think, just Scott Dietrich. But essentially just look for a magician poking his head out of a top hat.
And for those who are wondering how to spell his last name, it's Diet Rich.
Exactly.
I remember that. But he is Rich. He is amazing at magic. We had him on the sit down with you, and I'm still shocked with how he did his tricks. If you guys are wondering, go to Scott Dion Brown's YouTube channel and find the clip where he amazes us with his magic virtually. But you two are such an amazing duo. You know, you've hosted many fundraisers in the past. He does magic tricks. It's the perfect pair. Yeah. I mean, there's so much that you guys are able to do together. So I hope that Theo, your son, follows in at least one of your footsteps, or maybe both, and he'll be like a ninja, magician, scientist, pageant guy. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing, right? The world is his oyster. And I mean, I'm not going to force him into any specific thing, but if something intrigues him, you just kind of encourage it and let it blossom on its own. But it's true, we are definitely a good yin-yang, because I'm very analytical and logical, whereas Scott is more creative and just very emotional based. And yeah, he's just it's really nice. Yeah, that's it's really awesome. Nice. I think we're a really good balance. Even with Theo, he's able to think of things to play with him, and like with the puppets, because of his children's I sometimes get so entertained watching the two of them play. It's good. It's good for the soul.
That's amazing. And so you mentioned, I just lost my train of thought. Wow, sorry.
I
I'm
lost my
like,
train
what?
earlier too, so you're good.
um, I forgot what I was gonna say. But Denise, oh, I remember. So you're talking about Scott. You're talking about how he is. You two are the perfect yin and yang. And I know that there are some women, again, in the Mrs. division that maybe their husbands aren't sure about pageants or aren't sure about their partner or any partner competing. How is it for you and Scott? Like, was he on board right away? Did you have to convince him? Like, no, no, no. Especially with, because I know you guys were together during your Miss division, but when it
Yeah.
came back to Mrs., was there a lot of negotiating, or was he just super supportive and let you go do your
hmm
thing?
Yeah, no, Scott's always been really great. He early on when I met him, there was a quote that he shared with me. I forget how it goes exactly, but it was essentially when you love someone, you want for them what they want for themselves. And so, for him, it was just like, you want to go for it? Go for it. I'll be here to support you. And so I've always had this rock, this person who's always been there to support me no matter what. And
Mhm.
and so everything, even now, post going into the Mrs. world, it's been a family affair. Like, he's just been so supportive. He's like, you want to do it, go for it. And that's why I've been able to just have so many great experiences in my life, because like, one person, you could accomplish a lot of things, but when you have lots of people united, you could accomplish amazing things. It's
Mhm.
just, together, you're just so much more powerful. And when you have all that extra support, um I've been able to do so many great things because I've had that extra support. Even things like, during my Miss time, like, I'm not big into driving far distances. I get nervous with city driving, and even things like that.
Mhm.
I may have been more hesitant to do things because it was so far, or was in the middle of the city, and I wouldn't have been comfortable to drive there. But he would be like, "No, I'll take you." So just little things like that just allowed the opportunities for me because I have that support.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really think that a lot, like, well, all my successes, even from the very first pageant, it's because I've always had people there to support me in whatever way, whether it be my mom or my dad, like, driving me, to and from rehearsals for other pageants, or just, like, friends that have helped coach me and guide me through different pageants that I've done. There's always been multiple people. Be in front of every success, there's always like a story of a lot of other stuff that goes on behind the scenes. People don't see the times you cry, or the
Yep.
times you feel like a failure, or, oh, I'm just not good enough, or frustrations. They don't see that. They only see the final picture, but there's a huge story of what happens behind the scene.
Mhm.
And family is that included, like the people that helped push you and get you there as well. And
Mhm.
so I feel family has definitely been a huge part of that. I've been really fortunate to have a family that's been so supportive, because, like I mentioned, I feel it's going to also be an example for our son that, you have a goal, you have a dream, go for it. The worst thing that could happen is you gain skills, you meet friends, which is actually not a loss. You actually gain still from
Mhm.
it. So go for it.
That's amazing. Jenna is actually in the chats and she says he is seriously so supportive. And he is, and so is your family. Like, I feel like Scott is part of our sister queens. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
he's in our group chat. He knows exactly what's
Yep.
going on,
Yep.
but he's also so supportive of every one of us. Like, here, like, talking to him, he is full of wisdom and advice as well, and he's like your was hype man. He is everyone's
Yeah.
hype man. And your mother-in-law who is there, your mom, she's always with Theo. Like, it's just great to see that support. And it is family day, so why not
Yeah, I know.
embrace
So
all of
true.
them and the
So
villages behind each and every one of us.
true.
Denise, it's been a pleasure having you on this episode with me. I couldn't have asked for a better person to join me on Family Day weekend. As you mentioned, you are completely family oriented. So happy Family Day to you and your family. And
Thank
I know it's getting late, so I will let you go and hang out with Theo and Scott and your fur baby. But again,
you.
thank you so much. And if you want to plug in your social media one more time before we go so that people know where to find you.
Yep. So Instagram. So my personal account is Denise Garrido Official, and my Galaxy account is Mrs. Galaxy Canada. On Facebook, it's the Mrs. Galaxy Canada, and personal is Denise Garrido Canada.
Amazing. Thank you again, Denise, so much for being with us. And to all of you who tuned in, I see you all in the chats. Thank you for being here on your Family Day long weekend and Valentine's Day long weekend. I'll just put it out there. But thank you again. Please stay tuned for Wednesday evening. We have another very special guest, Erin Chapman. She is your Miss Elite Canada, and she has got a great story to tell. So I can't wait for all of you to meet her. I can't wait for you all to see us on Wednesday. Again, Denise, thank you so much for being here with me. Make sure you follow her journey to the Galaxy International Crown as your Mrs. Galaxy Canada, and we'll see you all on Wednesday. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.